The rain hammered against the windows of the old farmhouse, mimicking the relentless pounding in my character's chest. Their car sputtered up the overgrown driveway, carrying a family of 4 that was desperate to start over. In the city, there had been debt collectors and angry shouts and foreclosed homes. Here in the sleepy countryside town of Aiken Creek, there was only the creaking of floorboards and the whisper of wind through the dilapidated walls. The locals were friendly, the community tight, and there was a creepy abandoned power plant on the outskirts of town that was just begging for some paranormal investigators to come and check it out. This was our chance at redemption, and so we moved right in. See, our oldest son Kyle had found a job working security at the local convenience store. Our daughter Emma was excited about the possibility of internet, and we told our 5-year-old Ben that his new bedroom would be an adventure. My wife and I clung to each other during those first few weeks, exhausted but hopeful. Maybe if we could make it 6 months without being evicted, we could start planning our lives again instead of running from the wreckage of the past. But now we were trapped in a nightmare that was broadcasting our demise. It started with the television. I walked into the living room one evening after work, and the set was on. I don't know how long it had been on for because the power goes out frequently here, but the screen wasn't displaying anything. It was filled with snow. The sound was turned all the way up, which is weird because I never touched the volume. The moment I stepped in the room, the image cleared and there was a face staring directly at me. She was young, maybe early 20s, with wide eyes and a mouthful of sharp white teeth. She didn't speak. She just kept staring and smiling, slowly, wider and wider, until the TV cut out and went back to snow. I told my wife about it when she came home from church with the kids, but she just laughed and said that it must have been some kind of dream. I wasn't crazy though. I knew what I'd seen, and the next night it happened again. This time my wife was the one who walked in to find the television on. Same young woman, same blank stare, same manic grin. But then the TV turned off again and a message appeared. It was a jumble of lines and symbols that seemed alien and nonsensical. But our youngest son Ben, he ran into the living room and said, "No, no, I know what it means. It's telling me secrets." My heart broke because he was too young to understand what was happening. But I did. I recognized those symbols from the side of the road near the power plant. That was where we had found the disc, and it had been glowing an eerie green in the middle of the day. Of course, my wife thought I was losing my mind. How could I blame her? But I knew we had to get out of that house, so I unplugged the TV and we tried to pretend like everything was fine. But then the nightmares began. Every night, at precisely 2:13 a.m., the television would flicker on by itself and play another one of those cryptic videos. Most of them were just glimpses of tragedy. We saw a girl fall down a flight of stairs, and another video showed a man swing from a rope, his feet kicking wildly as he dangled over the edge of the roof. Some of them were more gruesome than others. There was one that I will never forget. Two lovers embrace and kiss passionately, before turning into dust and crumbling to the floor. Each time the TV cycled through these clips, we felt a chill creep up our spines. We also saw ourselves. We watched our older son get pinned under a tractor and gush blood onto the muddy ground. We watched our daughter hang from a rafter in the basement, while the joists creaked ominously above her. And then we watched our 5-year-old Ben burn alive inside the house, as it went up in flames. But it wasn't us yet. These were visions of what would happen to us if we didn't do something drastic. They were trying to warn us. I hate to admit it, but it worked. We talked about leaving that night, but it was too late. Before we could get anywhere in the car, the TV cut to a new clip. It showed us driving through the deserted streets of the town, desperately searching for a way out, but every road we took led us back home. A voice whispered, "You can't run from what's already recorded." Then the screen went black again and the static returned. We spent the next 2 days packing our things and making plans. We decided to head north, far away from here, where nobody knew us and the phone company couldn't track us down. When we woke up on the second day, we were greeted with another 2:13 a.m. static shock. And this time, it was different. Instead of warning us about the future, the TV was showing us the present. We watched ourselves sleeping in the next room, oblivious to the danger lurking outside. The screen switched to a view from the front window, and we saw a pair of headlights coming down the dirt road. As the car approached, the camera panned down to reveal muddy footprints leading from the front door to the back, and the whispered voice said, "Some guests have arrived." As soon as we heard that, we ran out the back door and hid in the cornfield across the street. I remember burying my face in my hands and sobbing uncontrollably as we waited for whatever or whoever was out there to pass. But when we looked back, the house was empty. The lights were off, and there was nothing but the wind in the trees. My wife and I exchanged a look that said, "What do we do now?" We debated for a few minutes, but we couldn't come up with a solution. The TV had won. It had made us homeless and separated us from our children. We drove around aimlessly for several hours, stopping once to use the payphone and call the local police. When we told them about our missing children, they laughed and hung up on us. I threw my phone into the back seat and hit the gas. We were gonna go back. We might not be able to outrun our fate, but damn sure as hell, we weren't gonna let somebody else take our kids. When we got back to the house, the TV was on. Static filled the screen, and then the face of the young woman appeared. But this time she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were huge and filled with tears. She mouthed the words, "Help me," over and over again, as the image dissolved into a pool of black ink. I smashed the TV with a rock, but it didn't break. It just kept flickering, and the voice whispered, "Do you really think that will help?" The screen started to glow, and then it reflected the room. We were standing there in the middle of the living room, looking at the TV, except we weren't alone. Standing behind us, watching over our shoulders, were Kyle, Emma, and Ben. But they weren't happy and healthy. They were dead. Ben was missing half his face. Emma's skin had rotted off her bones. And Kyle had this wild look in his eyes, and blood dripping from his fingertips. He turned around and smiled at me. Then he vanished along with the rest of them. The static returned, and for the first time I heard the voices of my children. They were laughing and playing and screaming and crying, and then they fell silent. By the time the sun rose, the house was silent again. The TV still flickered in the living room, though, and I could have sworn I heard the faint laughter of a little boy coming from inside the wall.